Welcome, Gyno-Curious listeners. I am Dr. Amy Novatt. We are here to investigate what it means to be a healer and to be healed. Today, I would like to welcome back Alison Chawla, a formidable woman, a perceptive therapist, and a mother of two daughters, which makes her, of course, the most wonderful, challenged, terrific person around, because raising daughters in today's world and boys in today's world and those who are non-binary, just raising children in today's world is a challenge and a wonderful adventure. And so Alison and I are going to talk about how those two daughters came to be. We are going to talk about sex today because sex is something that everyone has on their mind. And if it's not on their mind, they're wondering why it isn't on their mind.
Indeed.
And we, Alison and I have been talking about the perimenopause. Again, that time where hormones are beginning to change and our body and our mind and our psyche and our social world is evolving as our hormones begin to evolve. So welcome, Alison.
Thank you. What a fun intro. That was terrific. It's funny. I have to share. A few days ago, I adore my daughters more than anything. As any parent understands, it's a love that you didn't even know you were capable of until you have children. But I had one of those moments where I turned to my husband and I said, "What the hell were we thinking?" And he said, "We were not thinking. We were drunk."
Yeah, there's something about passion and orgasm and ejaculation that
brings children through.
Indeed. So I'd like to talk about sex in the perimenopause.
Sure.
In my office, I am hearing about so many issues. And us doctors, when we think about the changes associated with sex, we think about arousal disorder, desire disorder, pain syndromes, orgasm issues. We categorize all of this. But what I've certainly noticed in my office and talking to women as particularly libido changes is so much is about the experience of the emotion and the psyche. Can we talk about that, please? As a therapist, I'm sure you're hearing about this.
Absolutely. And I just want to add that, all jokes aside, but this is sort of a joke, I think arousal disorder not only occurs in the phase of perimenopause, but in the phase of parenting or having been married to someone for an extended period of time.
Indeed.
If you're not going through that phase, there are many things we're going to touch on with that. But it's a very real thing. I've tried to explain it to friends who are frustrated with themselves for not having the libido they once had, and leaning into biology a bit and saying, as a woman, you've done what you really are meant to do, procreate and carry the human race on by having children. And then there is something very organic that says, okay, thank you for the seed. We have flowered. I am done here. So that in itself is a very powerful thing. And I felt that happen. I remember after having children, I just thought, oh God, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to hire a professional or send them out to friends. There's just really this shift in the physiological being throughout this time period. But sex is so important, and it is the glue to the relationship.
It is. And I second it. My spiel is often about the biology and that, pardon me, reducing it to the sociobiology, but that as reproductive primates, that people with penises can procreate until the day they die.
As long as they want to.
And so their biological imperative is to spread their seed.
Correct.
Where us vulva havers, we stop having this biological need. In fact, I see us transitioning into that beautiful place of cronehood, where our job might be tending the fire, caring for family, community, and doing all the other stuff that we do. So that lust changes.
It does change.
And it's pretty profound because it's a delicious feeling.
Yes.
And so when that feeling changes, how do you help people transition to that place of accepting it or understanding it?
Before I say that, I want to address the penis holders out there. And even though you can procreate until the end of your days, there are all of these studies out saying and showing that old sperm, in fact, does pass on genetic mutations and concerns. So keep that in mind if you got excited. Please be careful. We're looking for healthy offspring and healthy experiences. So back to what I like to say, or some of the things I support others with, is approaching it differently. Funny enough, I wrote an article years ago for Huffington Post that was called Sex and the Salad, when Sex and the City was a very popular show. And people were like, what the hell are you talking about? Do you eat salad in bed with your husband? But I was comparing it to the diet that you don't really want to go on, or the healthy eating that you don't feel like doing. And I was comparing sex to that. So I was saying there are points in life where you know you need to do something that's good for you, but you don't necessarily feel like doing it. So a diet, for example, you want the burger or you want that piece of cake in the window, but instead you pick the salad. And then as you're eating the salad, you think, this is not so bad. And by the time you're done with the salad, you feel, gosh, I feel really good. I feel healthy. I feel energized. I feel productive. And I think that there is an approach to sex like that. You don't necessarily have that burning passion and desire where you want to tear the clothing off of your partner. But in fact, after sex, after the orgasm, you're going to feel fantastic.
Totally agree. So for so long, we thought that the only way that, let's just talk about vulva havers, experience sex is by desire, then arousal, then orgasm, and then resolution. But what studies have very clearly shown, particularly in the peri and postmenopause, is that desire happens after arousal. So after you've been eating the salad, you say to yourself, this is actually lovely. This is good. This is pleasurable.
Right.
I'm going to stay here and
make this happen.
Exactly.
Yes.
But that there's this shift. It's not this linear event anymore, that there is a circular phenomenon that goes on, particularly as we age.
Yes. And it's just great for our mental health, not just the relationship. If you're thinking of yourself as an individual, sex is a very healthy thing. It is part of our being as human beings to desire sexual stimulation and orgasm. It helps with mental health. It helps with physical health. It helps with sleep, circulation. There's really like almost a medicinal element to continuing to have sex. And for me, my husband does the laundry the next day.
And then there are the perks.
But to show like that it really does relieve tension and bring like back the effortlessness feeling in the relationship, even if that's temporary and then you need to have sex again the next week. But I think that I say that because it really does help people work well together.
I agree that there is a level of intimacy in the bedroom or on the kitchen counter or wherever you might make love that is different and sets you apart from all your other intimate relationships.
Yes.
And I want to point out, too, that when we're talking, Alison, we're not just talking about penises and vaginas.
Right.
We're talking about intimacy. I realize sometimes just holding my husband's hand is the sexiest thing out. And that we're talking about sharing body, sharing mind, sharing vulnerability. And that's, when I talk about sex, that's part of what I'm talking about.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just discussing a research study that showed that people who hold hands release more dopamine, the pleasure hormone, than others. And so you don't have to go into intercourse necessarily, but just intimacy, cuddling, kissing, holding, caressing, even if just for a few moments, it is so healthy.
In fact, there is something called sensate focus, which is when I'm trying to help someone get back into the bedroom, if you will. We talk about starting as if you were a teenager again, and you start on first base. You just fully clothed, you're just holding hands or kissing with closed mouth. And then you advance to open mouth and then touching upper part of the body and then lower. That the last thing you do is
have intercourse.
That's right.
And the thing I love about sensate focus and therapy is that you take it very slowly in the sense that you can decide for the first few weeks or the first month. And this is for people who have lost the connection or are afraid to reestablish the connection or even may think that they've lost that sort of desire for each other. You can decide that for an entire month, maybe once a week or a few times a week, we're just going to lay next to each other closely. And you allow the tension to build back up and the natural response of the body near another body to have a reaction. And then the next few weeks can be, okay, now we're going to kiss, or we're just going to caress each other's back. It's a very slow process, but for that reason, the desire organically builds for the other person.
Indeed. And what I like about that recommendation too is that as we go through the perimenopause, so many women are worried about the change in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from feeling less sexy
Mm-hmm.
to the weight changes and weight distribution changes that
Mm-hmm.
occur, certainly the vaginal changes, all these physical changes that bring on a sense of shame and
Yes.
a concern about not fulfilling their part of the
The
deal.
inadequacy.
Exactly.
Right.
So, what do you say to women in the therapeutic venue that you work in about this issue?
I try to eliminate the shame first and let them know that everyone goes through this. It's just not one of those things that we speak about freely. So it's something that they can know that they are not alone with. And then I mention things, for example, like lubrication, if that is an issue, because that is a big issue. The body changes a lot, and that becomes something that people need during sex. And I just try to make it something more approachable versus something that is shameful. Like, oh, you need this now. Like, actually, no, you don't need it, but this is going to make it even more pleasurable and even more fun. Sort of trying to shift the perspective. I'm also very big, I know a lot of people aren't a fan of this when they first hear it, I'm very big on scheduling sex into your life. And this is something that I even do with my partner, because when you are at a certain age with a career and life is changing and responsibilities and you have children, it is very easy to let that slip away. But if you put it in your calendar or in your mental calendar and you have that on, in the week schedule, it really makes a huge difference, because just like you must take a shower during the day, or you've got to go to work, or you've got to submit that proposal, whatever it may be, you're going to address it. There's going to be that connection. You're going to take care of yourself and the other person, and you're going to feel good on the other side.
Indeed. And women worry about the lack of spontaneity associated with what
Right.
I call date nights.
Right.
And I usually remind them, again, in the face of the very busy life that so many of us have, that there's something exciting about having a purple mark on your calendar that your partner doesn't even
Absolutely.
know what it's about, even if you share Google Calendars.
Right. Or you
And
can make it something that your
yeah,
partner knows.
yeah.
Look what's on the calendar. And there are plenty of ways to bring spontaneity into something that is scheduled.
That's right. That's right. And the preparation that our bodies need, for example, making sure you have your lubricant
Yeah.
right near wherever you're going to make love,
Mm-hmm.
is part of what happens as our bodies change. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe it's a drag to have to think about it, but if it in fact brings you pleasure, why not?
Why not?
Exactly.
Why not? And it's terrible to say, but if you stop having sex with your partner, and regardless if you're a male or a female, inevitably that person is still going to desire sex. So keep it in the family. Very sincerely, though. It's a tough thing to say, but there have been times where I have had to say to people who are withholding any sort of intimacy just for their own reasons, not because the partner, if there was an abusive partner, I would immediately encourage no intimacy, of course, and self-care and protection. But sometimes people just shut down. And I will say, I don't mean to upset you, but if you don't have sex with your partner, they're probably going to have sex with somebody else.
Mm.
So instead of letting these changes stop us from continuing to be who we're designed to be, just find ways, accessories, plans to keep it alive.
Absolutely. And that is so true. I feel like anything you bring into the bedroom that is respectful and nonviolent, I'm all for.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, there are a lot of ways to be pleasured and to pleasure your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so being creative and, most importantly, communicate. There's so much room for misunderstanding or
Yes.
mythology or suspicion when you walk away from the bedroom. Your partner doesn't know what's going on.
Yes.
So many women will come in and talk about their dry vaginas. And I say, have you mentioned it to your partner? Oh, no, I haven't. And I say, how could you not? You're avoiding
Right.
sex because it hurts, because you haven't used a lube or you haven't
Yeah.
used moisturizers. And more often than not, if it's a heterosexual partnership, he's wondering, where are you? What are you doing? Who are you
Right.
doing it with? Because it's not with me.
Correct. And there's plenty of concerns that men bring into the bedroom too. We're leaning into the perimenopause right now, but men have their own set of concerns and problems that can slow their sex drive and desire down and even performance.
Absolutely.
But the communication, I have a friend who is a doctor of sex, and she says, what makes the hottest sex? Communication.
Talking about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Using the words. But it is remarkable how many women have no language around this. So they talk about everything else, but they cannot bring language into the bedroom. Again, we're talking about shame, upbringing, religious beliefs, etc. How do you help people with that?
It just goes back to practice and trying and taking tiny baby steps. If I'm with a client, I will find something that they feel comfortable enough saying. And you start very small because we have been repressed. It just is what it is. And we still are, especially as women. Men can say things that we can't say, any gender. It's just it is different depending on who you are, who you've become, So I think that trying to start small and also emphasizing this is sort of, you're part of a movement. We're trying to make a change here for other women, especially if they have daughters. Because again, we are focusing on perimenopause in women at the moment. I don't want to leave any gender out, but letting them know, like, it doesn't have to be this way anymore. I know this is a part of the way you were raised or an experience, but trying to just get into it. Because very much like we're talking about, you may not have the desire to do it or feel comfortable to do it, not just the sex, but the conversation. But on the other side of it, you're going to feel relief and you're going to feel safer and more relaxed and more connected.
Indeed. And that's sexy unto itself.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think that's also something that a lot of people don't realize is that the likelihood is your partner also wants to be more open, also wants to be more adventurous or just communicative. And there is that block or that respect that has prevented it from happening. And it's a nice thing. In middle age, just try something new or open things up meaning communication. Not that I'm against people who decide to have open relationships if it works, but just bringing a newness in chatting and talking about it. Here we are, we're in our 40s or we're in our 50s and now my lower back hurts. And so what can we do? It just brings a lightness to it.
It brings an honesty to it.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
As our bodies change, again, whether we have a penis or vulva, that these realities are realities.
Yes.
And that honoring them, accepting them, having a sense of humor about them.
Sense of humor is huge.
Yep.
You have to be able to laugh about sex or sex life or while it is occurring. If something is to happen that was unexpected, laughing in the bedroom or the kitchen counter, like you said, wherever it's done, I think it's essential in a healthy sex life.
Yeah, because funny stuff happens.
Yes, it does. The sounds and scores of the bedroom, it does. But being comfortable with that and eliminating the shame is tremendous.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. So I'm speaking to you and the things that we're going over, but every single person, every couple, every interaction is different. But again, it goes back to that communication and openness for what works for you.
Yeah. And I want to speak to the fact that when we're talking about the perimenopause and the postmenopause, and these are often women who are of a generation where they didn't have access to sex products online. They weren't being exposed to porn. They weren't experiencing sexual play in the way that younger folks have access to,
they can
now. And certainly there was no conversation openly about polyamory or open relationships.
Right.
So there's been this wonderful expansion, breaking of boundaries, yet still, when we're talking to women who are going through these changes, they don't always have access to this either.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's interesting about the generation that does have all of this access? A lot of them just stopped having sex because they had too much access to pleasure online, within a toy, whatever it may be. And a lot of them stopped having sex.
With others.
Correct. They're having
Right.
sex with themselves,
Right.
but they have slowed down or stopped having sex with others. So it's really, no matter who you are or how you were raised, there can be a conflict or a challenge. But yes, definitely my generation of women did not have access. There was that shame. I certainly, even though I know like my dad probably had porn magazines when I was younger, God forbid I did or said anything that suggested sexuality. I understand the challenges, but again, we're moving forward. The world is changing. We've only got this lifetime once. And so I really encourage people to try to make a shift and open up.
Yeah. And again, pointing out that opening up can be small increments and doing it in a way that feels sometimes challenging to yourself, but also honors you. And
Right.
that courage is part of this for sure.
Courage. And, again, back to the middle-aged thing. I think that a beautiful, confident, middle-aged woman is more powerful than a young woman who is very attractive, probably, or young man, very attractive, but they're still learning. I mean, we have so much knowledge now. Why not grab some lube or make a plan on the calendar and then just bring all of that together? We're at a point in life where it's really a gift with how much we've done and how much we know. And so it doesn't have to be that our sexuality dies out.
Absolutely not. In fact, I'm so happy to report that I meet women who are in their 70s and 80s who are having great sex for
I
the
love
first time
hearing
in
that.
their life.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because they were in a relationship that was challenging, or they married very young at a time where they had absolutely
Of
no
course.
information about sex and sexuality. And that marriage lasted a good long time.
Of course.
And it was defined in a very structured, this is the way we do it, A, B, and C, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then they get to this place of wisdom
Right.
and bravery and like, fuck it, I'm going to
That's
do
what I was
I'm
going to
gonna
say.
do.
What do we have to lose?
That's right. And they meet someone who's there, a peer who's also at that place. And all of a sudden, there's this great sex life. And again, just to say out there, it doesn't mean they're having lots of intercourse. No, I'm
Right.
talking about an expansiveness emotionally, communication wise, touching, feeling, pleasure. And it's so exciting. And at the same time, I want to point out I meet many women who are not having intercourse. They have a sense of loss. They are grieving the loss of coital activity or intercourse. But we talk about ways in which to embrace intimacy in other ways. And there is a discovery there, and there is opportunity there.
There is. And even, it makes me think of when you said someone may be grieving that loss when it comes to trauma or something, if something terrible has happened in their past and they've shut that part of themselves down. I still feel that it can be nurtured and reawoken and delicately taken care of to come to a place of safety again, because it is a very fundamental part of being a human being. I mean, nature, there is intimacy in all of nature, especially in the spring. You can see it happening everywhere, and we are no different. We are designed to be intimate creatures, and we are designed to interact in these ways and have partners and physical simulation. Isolation and not having touch and not having intimate relations is shown to cause severe depression and has put people into catatonic states. And it's a terrible thing. We're not designed to be untouched, alone, unloved.
We even have science that shows that people who have illnesses do better. Their prognosis is better if they have relationship.
Yes.
If they have community.
Yes.
So that is an important part of that conversation too.
Yes, and I think a lot of women going into perimenopause or going into menopause can feel like they have an illness, can feel like something about them is getting very sick or is even dying and they're losing it. And so if this were more of a public medicine, I use quotations as I say that, if you will, I think that more people would do it. Really, when you start to feel like you're losing yourself, why not give more to yourself and nurture those parts?
Yeah. I also want to point out that you and I are very informed about this.
We
and
are.
We're also extremely clearly comfortable talking about sex.
Not everyone is.
It's true. And that's okay. It's really okay. We're just helping, hopefully, those of you listening out there understand that communication, language, exploration is a part of this, and not everyone is an expert. And everyone, again, even those of us who are well informed, are experiencing change in our bodies.
Absolutely.
So please speak to your physicians, read. There's so many books out there about options from lubricants to moisturizers to hormone replacement therapy to treatments for diminished libido. Speak to your therapist. Open it
Right.
up, break it open, because there are options, there's ways of healing and being in an intimate relationship that hopefully is safe and comfortable and exciting.
Yes. And that's why I keep bringing up there are different people that I know this isn't for everyone, but also just talk to your friends. Hang around, make some jokes, bring it up. You'd be amazed at how many people want to talk about these things or find relief or connection or ideas even. I joke, I am going through perimenopause, and so I speak with my friends, and there are so many similarities if I just have the courage to bring it up. And then there is relief even there, and courage comes through that relief, knowing that I'm not the only one who has to put it in the calendar or give myself a pep talk in the mirror. This is going to be great, because it's happening to everybody. So take it slow. No pressure to go onto the street and walk up to someone and start talking about sex, but just trying to find more comfort with it. First off.
Yeah, and as I think we've pointed out, that could start with conversation, that could start with reading something, that could be a conversation, again, with a clinician. Although I want to point out that many of my peers, unfortunately, are very uncomfortable talking about sex.
Yes.
They're worried that their 15-minute appointment is going to become labored with all kinds of complexities. So if your doctor says, sorry, we can't talk about that right now, make another appointment.
Yeah.
Or ask your friends about their doctors and see if there's somebody out there who is willing to do it.
Somebody else. Maybe you just need somebody else for this conversation, for this assistance.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Is there anything else that you would say is a pressing matter when women are coming into your office and concerned about these issues that you might want to share with our listeners?
I would just go back to what I see a lot of the time is the lack of desire. It's a very real thing. It's not intentional. It just does happen for most people. And so that is what I try to focus on, is changing the way that things happen, not beating yourself up. There's nothing wrong with you. This is very normal that this happens. But just when you feel that, take the moment to think, okay, what does this mean to me? What will this do? This is natural. How do I override or find a new way to explore this? But no putting shame. This is a very organic occurrence that we all go through, but it's not spoken about enough. And so I think just acknowledging it, taking some space for it, thinking about it, accepting it, planning is a very positive thing to do.
And with someone like you, explore the relationship, because more often than not, it's not just the physical changes, but that I hear women describe dysfunction in their relationships, a lack of trust, a lack of respect is going on, and being open about or trying to explore what's going on in the relationship.
And to the partner about it. That's another thing that, like you mentioned, they're not speaking to their partners, but saying to whoever you're with, look, it's not that I don't want to do this. Something has really changed and I'm working on it. Can we talk about it? Or if we don't want to talk about it, just know that this is not personal, or I still want to do these things. I still desire you. I'm just trying to find a new way within myself because something has shifted as I've aged.
Yeah.
It's back to that communication.
But I will also point out the number of women I meet who describe some level of dysfunction in the bedroom, leave that relationship and discover a new partner, and they're like, oh, that's no problem anymore.
Yes, I've heard that too. So there could be a problem in the relationship, and I never ever overlook that, and I always explore that. That is absolutely possible, that you're just not with the right partner, and that is something to consider as well. But if we're talking about just it's happening and you still love your partner or you want your relationship intact, then it's worth exploring. But definitely, if you are not happy with your partner and you are unhappy physically with your partner, that is something that has to be addressed.
And it totally turns people off of sex.
Yeah, and don't deny it.
That's right.
Don't put it
That's
on yourself. I said this to someone recently. I said, you always put this on yourself, and it's very clear that it's not you. You're just trying to be this receptive partner, but I think it's time to put your foot down and say, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There's no shame in that either.
Correct. Yeah, totally agree. So it's a very individual experience, yet there are universalities.
Yes.
There are options out there. Please speak to your friends, family members, whomever you feel the safest with, and know that one conversation begets another conversation, and knowledge just feeds into more knowledge, and that we are no longer in a time where we need to feel shame around our bodies, our sexuality, our sexual experiences. So together, Alison and I will continue to educate those we meet, and hopefully you can continue to educate everyone you meet. So talk about sex.
Yes.
There's no reason we shouldn't be. It's as organic as what we eat and how we move our body and
Go for that salad.
That's right.
And I
Go
keep
for that
educating
salad.
myself. Like, I'm constantly learning. I never, ever refer to myself as an expert because that means I know everything. And gosh, I'll never reach that in this lifetime. But I'm always educating myself, which I think people appreciate hearing because I don't have all the answers. And so we should all be out there exploring and looking and, hey, Googling. You could Google in, I'm 47, I'm 48, I don't have a sex drive. And you will get so much information from many angles as to why this is happening. And that in itself can be such a huge relief that it is so accessible out there.
That's right. Sex is remedial. We hopefully will continue to learn about our own bodies, our partners' bodies, and how we can find pleasure until the day we can't.
Until the day we die.
Indeed. 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 Alison, I can't thank you enough for joining me again.
Oh, it's such an honor.
Curious.
Thank you.
We always have fun doing this, and
Always.
I'm so grateful for that. Thank you also to my listeners for joining me as we venture into the limitless conversations about our bodies and the world of OBGYN. I would love to hear from you. Please email your questions and comments to comments@radiofreerhiniecliff.org or call us at 845-307-7446. Also, thank you to my producers, Jen Hammoud and Matty Rosenberg. Until our next conversation, stay healthy and stand strong in your knowledge and your insights.